Hi there, I'm Jennifer Bleam. I'm the Cybersecurity Sherpa. I help MSPs and SSPs dominate their market by selling cybersecurity and growing their business using my SMART framework. Well, what are we talking about today? Well, this is the one rule to rule them all. Yeah, that's right. It's a ruler. That was a really cheesy mom joke. But that's what we're going to be talking about today, because a lot of times I will hear that the one rule is that I have to follow my feelings and I have to do what my feelings tell them to do. And so we're going to be talking today. No, I'm not going to smack you with my ruler, although maybe I would if that would help you a little bit. But we're talking about feelings. And a lot of times in our sales process, we know what we should do, but because of our feelings, we don't do them. And so I know we talk a lot in marketing about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But sometimes when we are the salesperson, we allow our own fear, uncertainty, and doubt to control us. And I very, very much relate to that. In fact, when I shifted away from selling software and selling services that someone else had to deliver or selling insurance, all of those things were external to me. And I sold them very well and very effectively. But something happened internally inside of my own head when I had to sell my consulting services, when I had to sell my own intellectual property. And I wrestled with a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I have finally conquered that. For the most part, it still rears its ugly head if I don't get enough sleep or I don't stay on top of my physiology very well. But I want to give you 3 steps today on conquering that fear, conquering your feelings, and living in spite of them. So, the first thing I want you to know is that your feelings do not have to dictate your actions. You can feel one way and act in a completely different way. Some people will say, feel the fear and do it anyway. And so you can feel one way. I don't want to prospect today, but I want the results of the prospecting. So I'm going to do that. Or I don't really feel like asking for the sale because I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling a little bit like I've got a cold or the flu, or maybe a little bit of the Rona sneaking up on me, but I'm going to ask for the sale anyway. I'm going to play all in, even though my emotions don't want me to play that way. I'm going to choose to play that way anyway. So whether you are saying, okay, that's a demonstration of my discipline, or it's a demonstration of my bravery, however you want to frame that, I want you to remember that you can feel one way and act a completely different way. And so we ask our children to do this all the time. They may not feel respectful, but we still ask them to speak to us respectfully. Many times it's not going on inside. We can see it on their face, but we ask them to say, yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am, or yes, mom, or no, mom. And we ask them to speak to us respectfully, even if they're not feeling that way. So, how much more should we be able to do that as adults? So, that is point number one, is to recognize that you don't have to behave the way your feelings are implying you need to behave. Now, point number two is to shortcut those feelings. Don't even allow yourself to feel that fear. And this concept comes from the book, The 5-Second Rule. And the concept is that you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And usually what we all want to say is blast off or take off, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And by not introducing that delay mechanism into our lives, we won't feel the fear, because it's actually that delay that triggers our brain to think that there must be something dangerous. Because if we're thinking about doing something, if we're thinking about stepping out of that cave, it must be because there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex out there ready to eat us. And so why don't we not delay? Why don't we even not go outside of the cave and stay in where it's nice and warm and safe? And so it's our brain's way of recognizing a pause on our part must mean that there is danger. And my job as the brain is to keep my person safe. And so our brain convinces us not to take action because of that delay. And so if we can get rid of that delay, then our brain won't try to protect us and keep us from doing that thing that we need to do. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I want to give you a very real example of this. About a year and a half ago, I was sitting in the airport and my ride was delayed, couldn't pick me up for a couple of hours. I said, that's fine. I have plenty of work to do. The hotel was too far away to get an Uber. I didn't want to rent a car. I'm just like, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to get some work done. And all of a sudden the idea popped in my mind of, hey, why don't you call that vendor that you've been trying to get a hold of? And I had a point of contact. I was trying to reach out to explain my new offering, what I was doing in the channel. And I recognized that I was starting to hesitate. It's that self-doubt, that fear, the uncertainty. Well, I've already left a couple of messages. How many messages can I leave before I'm a pest? And just in that split second, I realized, if I don't do this now, my brain is going to talk me out of it. That delay is going to come in and set in, and I'm never going to do it. And so I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I dialed the phone, and wouldn't you know it, the vendor answered. And he's like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. I've been meaning to call you back. I've just been so busy. Now, that did not match the stories that were in my head. In my head, he was hiding behind the rock, hiding from Jennifer. I don't want to talk to her. I hope she doesn't call me again. As if I was in his world. He was just, I didn't know what he was thinking, but in my head, that's the story I told myself, that I was being a pest. In his world, it was, oh my goodness, I owe Jennifer a phone call. As a result of that phone call and me not delaying in the airport at that moment, because he actually was at his desk, happened to be ready to answer the phone, I was able to attend an event. I was able to schedule a later webinar to train their partners, and it worked out beautifully for everyone. So don't allow yourself to pause. Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off and take action. Now, the third point that I want you to think of when we are talking about the one rule to rule them all, which is to take action and not allow our feelings to dictate our actions, is to set a small goal. So maybe you are getting to the end of your sales calls and you're not asking for the sale, or you're not overcoming the objections, or you're only overcoming one objection, sort of a little bit, but you're kind of wimping out with the rest of the objections. We all let ourselves play those silly reindeer games. And so the rule that I want you to follow is to set a small goal. Maybe your goal is, on this next sales call, I want to overcome 2 objections. That's a very small goal. The worst that can happen is they say, okay, sure, I would love to do business with you, and you aren't able to overcome the objections. I think we would all agree that was a win. But in order to get to the point where they actually say, no, I'm not ready to move forward, we have to hear their objections. And so if you set as your goal, because you recognize that you weren't asking for the sale and you weren't pushing for the sale and you weren't controlling the outcome of the sale, if you recognize that in yourself, then set as a small goal that on the next sales call, I want to overcome 2 objections. And then I want you to celebrate when you actually do that, because that celebration is also a feeling. And what happens is that positive emotion starts to overcome the negatives of not actually taking action. And so instead of kind of knocking yourself down and creating this habit where you never take action and you never push and you beat yourself up because of it, instead, set a goal of a very small outcome and then celebrate it. Celebrate that win. Share it with your community so that we can celebrate with you. And that is how you are gradually going to become just a little bit better every single day. So that's it. 3 simple tips to remember that your feelings do not have to rule your life. Number 1, live in spite of your feelings. Recognize that you can feel one way and act another way. Number 2 is don't allow the feelings to happen in the first place by leveraging the 5-second rule. And point number 3 is to set small goals and celebrate those wins. That's it for now. I'll be back next time with another tip or trick on helping you to sell more cybersecurity.